Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
I'm starting this episode of Cut the Clutter by throwing a bunch of questions at you. Do you have a caste? Do you believe in caste? Is caste a good thing or a bad thing? Can an Indian be without a caste genuinely? Next, should there be caste in politics? Is caste politics a good thing or a bad thing? Next, do you believe in religion, God, gods, whatever, whoever? Do you think religion is a good thing? Do you think bringing religion into politics is a good thing or a bad thing? Linguistic identity, do you think bringing language, linguistic identity, ethnic identity into politics is a good thing or a bad thing? Now, I've given you a few minutes to think. So while you think, I will come to the point of today's Cut the Clutter. Today's Cut the Clutter has been provoked by developments in Bahujan Samaj Party, that is Mayawati's party in Uttar Pradesh. In Uttar Pradesh, countdown has started. It is the biggest prize in Indian politics. The hype you saw over West Bengal just until a month back, that will be nothing. That will sound like nothing compared to what you're going to see in Uttar Pradesh a few months from now. Uttar Pradesh elections are at the upper limit, about 7 months away. Chances are any time after 6 months, code of conduct will be announced. Electoral code of conduct will be announced in Uttar Pradesh, and the state will be then fully into the election mode or the campaign mode. The state is already in election mode, and as we see, the state, the chief minister are quite punch drunk right now because of the way COVID spread in the state, and particularly the abiding image of the second wave of COVID in India. His body is floating in UP's rivers, mostly the Ganga, but also in Jamna, and also strewn along the river's banks. That is the abiding image of the second wave. Now, UP, the bugle has been sounded, the election is on. You see that a whole bunch of RSS leaders have been traveling through UP, meeting ministers. A key aide, former aide of the Prime Minister, a civil servant, former IAS officer has been sent to UP, given some key things to run, including control of COVID in Varanasi, the Prime Minister's constituency. All that has one message, and that message is the campaign for UP for elections is on, and that the BJP is concerned. The BJP would not take any chances, and they are not leaving it all to Yogi Adityanath. Although, mind you, every RSS and BJP leader who's going to Uttar Pradesh now is tweeting in support of Yogi Adityanath and saying nice things about him, and also saying how quote unquote brilliantly he has handled the second wave. But the message is not lost on anybody. So politics in UP now is fully on, full on. Akhilesh Yadav has been visiting constituencies, he's been meeting party office bearers, he's been meeting party workers. He sees a chance. In fact, I would comment to you strongly that you play the live question answer session in Polygraph that our political editor DK Singh did today with one of our senior most political correspondents, Neelam Pandey, on the print.in. Do check it out. So Akhilesh Yadav, he now senses a chance. He thinks, particularly after the local body elections, the Panchayat elections, where SP did very well, better than the BJP, he thinks that there is a chance. He's also got a good combination of vote banks, and he thinks that he might, because he got such a bad drubbing in 2017 elections, and then even worse in 2019, despite his Mahagathbandhan with Mayawati and her BSP. So just as the BJP has started preparations, so has the opposition. Akhilesh is preparing. If you see Priyanka Gandhi, she writes a Facebook post almost every day now in Hindi. So be very conscious of the fact that each one of these is written in Hindi. So you can see that she's also addressing that audience. In the middle of all this, what is Mayawati doing? Now, Mayawati is somebody who's been chief minister of Uttar Pradesh 4 times. She's quite young. She was born in 1956. She's quite young. She's been chief minister 4 times, 95, 97, 2001, all these were short-term chief ministerships. Twice these were in partnership with the BJP. She was an ally of the BJP, and finally 2007 she won a majority of her own and ruled for 5 years, defeating Mulayam Singh Yadav. So she's been chief minister 4 times. She's also a politician of substantive weight because she gets 20% or 19 to 20% of the vote in Uttar Pradesh no matter what happens. Even when she gets wiped out, 2017, even when she gets hardly any MLA, or in an election in 2014 when she gets no parliament seat, she still gets a 19 to 20% vote. That's a bit like the Congress party nationally. No matter what happens, they still get that 19-20% vote. So in Uttar Pradesh, where elections are often sort of 3 ways, that is BJP, SP, BSP, 20% is not a bad committed vote bank to have. And also her boast has always been that my vote is transferable. So in fact, every time people ask her, and I have asked her this many times, including on a Walk the Talk show, a 2-part Walk the Talk show, which I recorded for NDTV a long time back, and I will share the links with you. She's rarely done interviews at such great length, and you can see that this was quite a friendly and warm interview, to the extent that at that point Kashi Ramji was recovering at her home or being nursed at her home. He was in sort of mostly in coma after a stroke. So she even walked me up to his room in her government house on Humayun Road in Delhi, and also made little conversation with her and got a childlike smile out of him when she said, देखिए शेखर गुप्ता आए हैं, कुछ खाएंगे, इनके लिए भी आपके लिए भी चने भटूरे मंगाऊं क्या. So that was almost to elicit a childlike smile from Kashi Ram. So she's been around at a very young age. She's been chief minister 4 times. She's been very quiet all this while. In fact, this is the quietest we have seen Mayawati in a very long time. So the past couple of years, it's especially after the 2019 elections, it's as if she's gone into maybe a vanvas, an exile, a Maunvrat, something. And there are many interpretations to that, that probably she's afraid of her cases because CBI, ED, usual suspects, CBDT, they've been all at her, on her tail. There are income tax cases, there are other cases, or maybe she's trying to figure out her politics again. One thing, if there's one thing about Mayawati that I can tell you, she is one of those people in our politics. She's one of those remarkable characters in our politics who lives politics 24/7. There is nothing else in her life but politics. So, in fact, one of her aides, in fact, more than one of her aides who worked with her in the past when she was chief minister, used to complain to me and say that, and some of these people I had known for a couple of decades, who would say, look, we are normal people, we are ordinary people, we like to go home, be with our families, watch some cricket, watch some movies, watch some news, listen to some music, but not with her. She's 100% politics, doesn't read a book, doesn't watch a movie, doesn't watch a game of sport, doesn't joke, doesn't listen to any music. Politics, politics, politics. And because she works almost 24/7 and she wants us to be around, we have to be like that also, always alert, only with politics, politics, politics. So that if that's been her life, and she has earned her spurs the hard way, because in the heartlands, very heavily caste driven politics where upper castes have always been supreme, she not only carved out a niche whereby she could get noticed, but she won fair and square a full majority in the state of Uttar Pradesh and was a very powerful chief minister for 5 consecutive years, full term, and that is after she had been short term chief minister for 3 terms before that, and each time she's made an impact and left behind an impact. I will tell you a little bit about that. Now what's happened is, suddenly she's hit the headlines, because at least UP headlines or headlines in the political circles, because for the past couple of years everybody thought, oh, has Mayawati now given up? Is Mayawati's politics now over? Is this 19-18% vote now going to go a begging? Who's going to get this vote? In fact, BJP may have also seen its chances, because RSS has been working very closely with a lot of Dalit communities, particularly those Dalit communities which even her community or her sub-community, that is the Jatavs, see as lower to them, or for example Valmikis. And we mentioned this in our Cut the Clutter 584, that in Hathras, when a Dalit girl was allegedly raped, killed, and all that scandal took place of her nightly cremation, she didn't speak very much, and one understanding was that this was a Valmiki girl, and she already thinks that Valmikis have left her and they've gone over to the BJP. Obviously, it is evident, and Lokniti CSTS poll showed us that some scheduled caste communities, some Dalit communities in Uttar Pradesh have been shifting their vote to the BJP, and these are essentially non-Jatav communities, many of them Valmikis. So there was a sense that her vote is going a begging. BJP was moving in. There is also Chandrasekhar Azad, who is rising. He's a Jatav leader. He is a young leader. He gets a lot of support. Anytime you publish a picture of him, an interview with him, a story about him, you find that that Guru Google acknowledges the fact that he is very popular, because immediately your numbers go up. So where was Mayawati? So suddenly Mayawati reappeared, and that's why the headlines. And she reappeared in her own way, by doing something drastic and by doing something surprising. So what did she do? She suddenly rose and she removed from her party two key leaders, Lalji Verma and Bhim Rajbhar. Now, once again, Uttar Pradesh politics caste. Lalji Verma is a Kurmi leader. Kurmis are 9% of Uttar Pradesh's voters. Kurmis are the second largest other backward caste in Uttar Pradesh, largest being Yadavs, around 13-14%. So Kurmis are very important in Uttar Pradesh. So Lalji Verma is a Kurmi leader. He is a party veteran. He's been in the party since the early days of its founder, Kanshi Ram. So she removed him, and she also removed Bhim Rajbhar. Rajbhar is a leader of the Rajbhar community, which is a community in deep eastern UP. We've talked about that community in CTC earlier. That community is spread out, but it still has quite a decisive influence in 22 to 25 seats in UP Assembly, which is a lot of seats. And so far in the past, the BJP had reached out and made Rajbhar the leading Rajbhar party, the Suhel Dev party as it's called, because Suhel Dev was a legendary old ruler of the Rajbhar community. BJP had co-opted them. BJP still has some of them, but Rajbhars have mostly broken out on their own. This, her turning out one Rajbhar, although she has another Rajbhar in her party, the other Rajbhar actually is the president of her party in the state. So her turning out this Rajbhar and this Lalji Verma has been seen as significant. Now there is a background to it which makes it more significant. In the last election, 2017 assembly elections, she only won 19 seats. So a party that won 200 plus in 2007 to get a majority of its own only got 19 seats in 2017. That's the election that BJP swept. Yogi Adityanath did not sweep. BJP swept. He was made chief minister subsequently. Of the 19, 9 had already been suspended over these 4 years by her for anti-party activities. During Rajya Sabha elections, some voted this side, that side, some flirted this side, that side, because most of the people in her party have no ideology and have no commitment to anything. They see her as a leader, one leader party, and she gets you the votes. She gets you the votes means she gets you the power. If she doesn't get you the power, you can endure it for some time. But if she fails to get you any power for a decade almost, after 2012, she lost power in 2012, she hasn't got anybody power since then you begin to get impatient. You think, what's in it for me? And that's why you find her MLAs who get elected in other states, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan are good examples right now. Their loyalty is very limited. Delhi, you will find that wherever possible, they go for the highest bidder and they don't even get very high bids, because they are in very small numbers, penny pockets, so they can't collectively bargain. Also, anti-defection law doesn't really work there. If you're only two members and one splits, no anti-defection law. So these MLAs also have been flirting. Some had gone and met Akhilesh Yadav at Samajwadi Party also. So over time, she has suspended 9 of them. Now 2 more are out. That means 11 of 19 are gone this way, and 1 already has become an MP. He had contested in 2009. He has contested Lok Sabha elections and he's become an MP. So she is now left with only 11 have gone this side, only 7 active MLAs of her own. 1 has become an MP. Now, the key thing is, as we said, she still has this 90 to 20% vote. So when it comes to the election next year, she is going to be a leader of substance. She is not somebody any party is going to be able to ignore, and any move she makes right now are then watched very closely by others, particularly by the BJP, because the BJP was hoping that more of this Dalit vote will come to them. Now the other big thing in UP is, and I say this again and again and again, but this is something, this is like E is equal to MC square when it comes to the Hindi heartland politics. It's very simple. The E is equal to MC square of the Hindi heartland politics is, can you use caste to divide people who follow one religion? Or can you use religion to reunite what caste divided? Whoever succeeds in doing one of these rules the Hindi heartland, and by implication, more often than not, rules India. So when Congress lost its power, its vote banks in 1989 in the Hindi heartland, some caste-based parties emerged there. So Mulayam Singh Yadav came up with his Yadav party, Lalu Yadav, Yadav party. In Bihar, Nitish Kumar had his Kurmis and others, some other backward castes, and BJP rose with Hindutva. So BJP has since then tried to use Hindutva or Hindu nationalism to unite the Hindu vote in these states, and if that happens, then irrespective of how much the Muslim vote is and where the Muslims vote, BJP wins, because BJP's calculation is simple. If it's a 3-way split, say in Uttar Pradesh, then if BJP gets 40%, more than 35%, any party that gets 35% sweeps that election, because you know that the other 2 parties will get about 20% each. In 2017, BJP got about 40% of the vote, which means if half of the Hindus vote for the BJP, BJP is fine. So for any of these parties to reach that magical figure where they get seats, they can convert vote share into seats, they have to deny the BJP more than half of the Hindu vote, and that can only happen if Hindu vote is divided on caste basis. Similarly, when it comes to national elections, because then Modi is on the ticket, then it becomes, BJP's pull becomes much stronger, because then Hindutva and nationalism both come together. So last parliament elections, we were traveling in UP. A lot of people said, we know that nothing much has happened for us in 5 years, लेकिन देश के लिए वोट देंगे मोदी जी को. आप मोदी जी को वोट क्यों दे रहे हैं? देश के लिए. When that happens, then BJP sweeps the Hindu vote almost entirely, I mean overwhelmingly, and so BJP got 50% plus of the entire vote in Uttar Pradesh. In that case, while SP and BSP were together and got about 20% vote each, in fact BSP got a little more than 20%, whereby hangs a tail, even then they were behind the BJP, so BJP just swept that election, swept them aside. So that is the equation in the Hindi heartland. In Bihar, Lalu, he got his Yadavs and some backward castes, and also the Dalits, because Dalit vote in Bihar did not go to the Dalit party that came up in UP, that is Kashi Ram's Bahujan Samaj party. Further, for any of these caste based parties, or middle class and lower caste, or middle caste plus lower caste based parties to succeed, they need another chunk of votes from Muslims. In Bihar, Muslim vote went with Lalu. In Uttar Pradesh, it's mostly gone with Mulayam Singh Yadav and then Akhilesh Yadav. The one time that Mayawati was able to get a chunk of it, she got a majority. At that point, she also got a lot of the upper castes to vote for it, because people were hassled about the crime situation, law and order situation then under Mulayam Singh Yadav, because too many mafias which were seen to be sort of Yadav mafias, his caste mafias, mafias of the caste loyal to him, that the policemen will not interfere with, they had come up. So that is the basic equation. So what is she doing now? If she needs this other caste, why is she getting rid of these castes? So simple answer is, she knows that ultimately in her politics, these castes don't matter, in the sense that these leaders don't matter, because any vote that comes to her will come in her name, and it does look like she is on the up, that she is going to do well, then some of these caste leaders will come with her anyway, and she will have to stitch an alliance nevertheless, otherwise it's not going to work for her, because the vote she has are too little. I told you that in the last 2019 parliament elections, when she and Akhilesh had a grand alliance, I told you thereby hangs a tale. The tale is that while her boast had always been, anytime we asked her, why don't you have an alliance with somebody, and she will say, भाई साहब मैं अलायंस किसी के साथ इसलिए नहीं करती कि मेरा वोट ट्रांसफरेबल है, किसी और का वोट ट्रांसफरेबल नहीं है, that my vote is transferable, I can tell my voters to vote for so and so, but other people's vote is not transferable, so it's not an equal deal. What happened in 2019 was, she got more seats than Akhilesh Yadav. That's because Akhilesh was able to transfer his vote, that is essentially the Muslim and Yadav vote, to her, but she was not able to transfer her Dalit vote to him. Some of the Dalit vote preferred to go to the BJP. So that has further weakened her position in Uttar Pradesh. So it is from that point that she is trying to rebuild her politics now. Now, the politics of Bahujan Samaj Party in Uttar Pradesh is sui generis, because it's very interesting that the same party has not succeeded that much, say in Punjab. Of all the states in India, the highest percentage of Dalit population is in Punjab. It's a fact, it's counterintuitive, most people don't realize it. Kanshi Ram, the founder of Bahujan Samaj Party, also came from Punjab, in fact from what was called as Ropar district, now Roopnagar. He also won an election once from Hoshiarpur, which is a reserved constituency in Punjab. In fact, now BJP's chief in Punjab is a Dalit, Vijay Sampla. He's been heading the National Scheduled Caste Commission for quite some time also. Now, even Kanshi Ram, although he was born in Ropar, and he had a very interesting history. He was born in Ropar, he went to college, graduated in science, he got a job at a big top defense laboratory in Pune at what is called as ERDL, that is Explosives Research and Development Lab in Pune. He was a scientist. There, while he was working, he realized there was a lot of caste-based discrimination. He became an Ambedkarite. He briefly joined RPI, Republican Party of India, founded by Ambedkar, but has broken into so many pieces that it's very difficult. I think the English language will be running short of alphabet to count all the factions of RPI. मेरे इस दिल के टुकड़े हजार हुए अम्बेडकर के, कोई यहाँ गिरा कोई वहाँ गिरा. One of those legatees, in fact, incidentally, is Ramdas Athavale, who is a minister in the Modi cabinet. In fact, the only minister from an NDA constituent other than the BJP. So he briefly went to RPI, then got disillusioned because he thought RPI was dabbling into politics, alliance politics with Congress. He did not like it. He set up something called BAMSEF. BAMSEF was All India Backward and Minority Communities Employees Federation. It was like a union. In fact, those days if you traveled by trains or even you walk through cities, you will find this graffiti BAMSEF, which sounded a little odd, not very familiar, but little were we to know that this will become one of the greatest forces, political forces in the Hindi heartland. This letter also became, or also grew into one of its manifestations, let me say, was Dalit Shoshit Samaj Sangharsh Samiti, or what was called as DS4. So again, you'd remember a lot of graffiti saying DS4, BAMSEF. These then further morphed into Bahujan Samaj Party in 1984. In fact, a lot of the people now, particularly on the left side, like to say Bahujans for people of minorities and Dalits, etc. That is something that Kanshi Ram started. In fact, in VP Singh's year, he had a big rally in Delhi where leaders of various opposition parties, particularly caste-based parties, small caste, lower caste-based parties and minorities, including Sikh leaders participated and Muslim leaders, and they said this is what we mean when we say vote hamara, raj tumhara, nahi chalega, that we Bahujans are the majority. If you put us all together, that's why we are called Bahujans. We are not minorities, we are just divided into minorities. Now, Kanshi Ram contested a couple of elections. He lost a couple of times. I covered him in one election. It's most important election, in fact, in 1988. That is when VP Singh contested in Allahabad to challenge Rajiv Gandhi. He resigned from Congress party and contested a by-election in Allahabad, vacated by Amitabh Bachchan, to tell Rajiv Gandhi that he meant business. He won that election, but that was a very high-profile election. And Kanshi Ram decided to contest that, as much as, say, Arvind Kejriwal had decided to contest against Narendra Modi in Varanasi in 2024, because you know that most likely that you will lose, but you will get so much attention and make such an impact. So Kanshi Ram, in fact, used to tell us when he held his darbar कि हमको 3 बार इलेक्शन लड़ना है, पहली बार हारने के लिए, second time to get noticed, and third time to win. That happened to him. Mayawati, in fact, won her first election the 4th time. 3 times she lost and then she won. So she is the King Bruce of Indian politics, of heartland politics. She lost 84. She lost in Kairana in Western UP. 85 lost in Bijnor in Western UP. 87 lost in Hardwar, then in UP. 89 then she won in Bijnor just by a few thousand votes, and then has never looked back. And as I said, she is still quite young. She still has control over the Dalit vote, and you see she's done a lot of things. And I will also tell you the one thing that she hasn't done. She has created a lot of landmarks and sort of places and institutions in the name of Dalit icons and Buddhist icons. So Ambedkar Nagar, all these are districts. Ambedkar Nagar, Udham Singh Nagar, not a Dalit icon in that sense, but it's also in an area where a lot of Sikhs live. But Ambedkar Nagar, Udham Singh Nagar, Gautam Budh Nagar, Kaushambi district, she carved it out of Allahabad, Jyotiba Phule Nagar district, Mahamaya Nagar, going back to Buddhism, Chhatrapati Sahuji Maharaj Nagar, and a lot of these were done in her short chief ministerships. And then Gautam Budh University and Chhatrapati Sahuji Maharaj Medical University. In fact, that is the new name that she gave for what was called as King George's Medical College. The other thing I will tell you, that she realized early enough that she can't win elections, she can't win power by just having a Dalit vote. She needs others. So Muslim vote, not just the Muslim vote, because all Muslims will not vote for her anyway. So she always tried to reach out to upper castes and other parties, and her proposition then was that I will give you law and order which others may not be able to give you. So I know that anytime something is said or something is written about her, one stereotype that comes back in is she and her party said Tilak Taraju or Talwar inko maro jute char. So Tilak for Brahmin, Taraju for Banyas, Talwar for Kshatriya, upper castes, inko maro jute char. Now that is not a slogan I have ever heard in a BSP rally. That is not a slogan that I have even heard before that in the presence of any senior BSP leaders, Kanshi Ram, etc., even before BSP became such a big party, because I have followed them since 1983-84 for sure. So I have never heard that slogan. But the one other slogan that I have heard, which is more interesting and more political, is Hathi nahi Ganesh hai. Now you know Hathi is the election symbol of BSP. Hathi nahi Ganesh hai, Brahma Vishnu Mahesh hai. That this is not just an elephant, this is Lord Ganesha. It also embodies Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, the trinity of the leading trinity or the reigning trinity of Hindu gods. So she is not somebody who is so short-sighted as to think that she can win elections all by herself. So she is always pushed closer to the mainstream. I think with these two changes, she's indicating something to us, that she's now getting set for elections next year. What plans she has, I think we'll figure out in maybe in the next 6 weeks or so. So watch this space very carefully. And I'd asked you a few questions early on, so I will just raise another point with you before we conclude. I know that a lot of you will say caste politics is bad, but is caste politics only bad when the lower castes do it? What about the upper castes? The reason the BJP sweeps the Hindi heartland is that upper castes vote unitedly for it. So upper castes are as much a BJP vote bank as say the Yadavs are Lalu Prasads or Tejashwis or Akhilesh Yadavs, or say the Jatavs are Mayavatis. So caste politics is a reality, religious politics is a reality, identity politics is a reality. All our politics runs around these factors of identity. So that's why these key elements of identity define our politics. In every democracy's politics, identity plays a very key role.